And we're alive!
Whee!
If you're wondering why there's no motivation in this group, it is because all of us have given up.
Accurate.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, so let's get small introductions out of the way. This is our first time doing this, so I'm just gonna kick us off. This is a, well, at this point it's a rant review, a critical review of Stormlight Archive Book 5. This fucking thing.
Yep.
Bad. So first things first, we have reread the other 4 ones. You can find all of the videos. I'm going to link them down below later. I didn't do that yesterday because it was like midnight when I scheduled all of this, so let's not worry about that too much. But I'm going to link all of the videos down below so you can check them out if you want to. This might come as no surprise, but I still want to say it. This is a full spoilers review. We're going to talk about everything that happens from book 1 to 5, depending on how much we need the other books for context. So if you haven't read book 5 yet and you still want to, good luck. And also maybe... okay, maybe don't. But also, this is your chance to leave the video now if you still want to read it and you don't want to have any spoilers. Next thing, we've said this before in the other video, so I'm just going to say this in like 1 or 2 sentences. We used to like this guy, we used to like his books, we also used to like the Stormlight Archive series, then we started having some troubles, and then we started rereading it, and we started seeing a lot more troubles, and so now we're here, okay? If you like Brandon Sanderson and you still want to stay on this video, you're welcome to. If you like Brandon Sanderson and you want to start shit in the comments, you're also welcome to. We don't give a fuck anymore.
Like,
so
genuinely starting this, because we're also at book 5, genuinely starting this, I did not think that I would actually get to a point where I would say there's nothing redeemable about his books. Like,
that's fair. Same.
I thought, at least, the character work is good, because there was like, I started seeing problems with his stories, but his character work, like, it was always solid. It just all crumbled to dust.
Yes.
I also love that part of what Scylla just started off with wasn't, the first part wasn't even like, oh, we don't like this book, we don't like this guy.
Like, at this point, it's personal, all right?
At this point, it's personal, yeah.
Also, hello, Howell.
Hey, friends.
We're very happy that you love hearing us rant. Like,
well, we're gonna feed you so well today.
Our pain brings some joy. It's a net positive.
Yes.
This is the only way you need to like do anything with this book. All right, it's just whatever summary we can manage.
Oh, I wish I could cross my eyes.
Hi, Roro. All right. Okay. So another thing that I want to say very briefly is I felt really bad buying his book because, in case you don't know, Brandon Sanderson is Mormon and he tithes to the Mormon Church because he's an active member of the Mormon Church. I don't know if I don't know what part of his income he tithes. I don't know if it's directly his books or if it's just his salary as a professor and whatnot. But nevertheless, I don't feel comfortable giving him a lot of money. So I personally have decided that I'm going to be donating around the same sum of money that I have paid for this book to a queer help community or like queer help charity here in my country, which is Germany. So I'm going to be leaving the link to that down below in case you're German and also want to help out. And essentially, I've forgotten the name right now because it is very late and I am very tired. But it is an organization that essentially helps schools have education with LGBTQIA+ stuff in it. There's people that get paid or volunteer to go to schools and teach children what it is like to be queer so they can ask questions and we can hopefully have a less queerphobic future. So in case that interests you or in case you want to spread that news to other people who do in fact live in Germany, please feel free to. Again, I will be leaving everything in the description. Once this is over, all of us go to bed.
Yes. Should I plug the one for the States that I recommend?
Yeah, please do.
So in the same vein, if you're looking for one in the States to donate to, I would recommend the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a hotline for anyone who you think might be committing self-harm, but more specifically, it is a hotline for LGBTQ plus youth. It was started in the 1980s and is very popular right now as far as one that has a very large outreach here in the States and is known for being very active with the funds that they receive and demonstrating to the public how those funds are being used, which is why I like them. So if you're looking for someone to donate to, instead of buying this book, go donate to any one of these organizations.
Genuinely, between when we decided to do this, and between now, I forgot that we decided to do that. I'm gonna try to find the organization again that I originally found that I don't think I sent a link to. But I think I found this one organization that specifically also works with queer refugees.
That's cool.
And like queer communities within refugee communities. So I'm gonna try and find that again.
Yes.
I don't know if I can. But like they also have like homes and like flats for specifically queer refugees because they often like face additional prejudice. So yeah,
that's really cool.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, whenever you find that, just pop me the link and I can just put it down in the description, and then it's all good because like I cannot stress this enough to everyone watching how little of a shit we all have left to give. I just, in general about this book, but also about everything surrounding it. Like, we've gone steadily downhill from, listen, if you like his writing, that's great. We just don't. So, like, it's cool, all the way to, if you want to start shit, we will either start shit back or just flat out ignore you because we have said it over and over again. We don't care. And at this point in time, I genuinely cannot muster a whole lot of emotion anymore. It's just apathy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, if you love him, great. Love him somewhere else.
We don't care.
We don't
care.
Okay.
I also tried to drop the website in the chat, but I don't know if it went through or not. I don't know. Do you see it in comments or no?
I don't see it right now.
Interesting.
Maybe it just doesn't like links. Or maybe YouTube is just being a bitch. Yes, Roro, definitely. I do think that queer authors, or in general, a lot of marginalized authors, don't get the ability anymore to publish large series like that. I mean, large fantasy series have slowly fallen out of fashion anyway, which I personally think is kind of sad because I do like my long-ass series. I also understand that some of the long-ass series are long-ass because they just pad their runtime excessively, which is not great. But I do miss the long ones, and I do think that marginalized authors get way less chances of writing them. So I really hope.
I just Googled it and I found the two ones that I originally found. The first one was Queer Base, which to be fair, I have not researched. So I don't know, especially a lot of times because there can be communities, people who take advantage of marginalized topics for their own. And the other one is Queer Amnesty, which is a subgroup of Amnesty International in Austria. And since Amnesty International is pretty, reputable, I would say, I'm gonna send both of those links to you after the live show.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
nice.
Okay, I think because I see it now, it's coming up as comment failed to post. I think it's because I can't put in a website, so I just put the name of the organization. There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, are we ready? I don't know if I'm ready.
All
right.
My spirit can't handle this.
Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna kick us off again
Go
because,
for it.
this is my channel and whatever. I'm taking ownership of this because if no one does, we will just sit here in silence.
One last
wallowing for
thing.
like an hour.
One last
Yeah.
thing. I challenge people who are watching this, because all of us drink responsibly, but all of us have alcohol. Let's see if you can make a drinking game out of it. Like every time one of us sighs very, very deeply, just drink.
If we
think that
start
is enough.
covering
I
our
don't think you have
faces,
to add anything else.
no. It's like
However,
either
if you have watched
sighing.
our previous live shows, and if you have any, any my brain, anything else you think might be good to add, put it in the comments. But
Yeah, just have fun with it, guys. But also just be careful, all right? Because
drink responsibly.
please do. When I tell you, like, okay, so very, very quick. It's the thing. We have this thing. I love that. Please eat your yogurt. I hope
Yes.
you enjoy it.
Take a spoon of yogurt every time you hear a sigh.
Please. Yes.
You will be done
Of
with this thing in like 20 minutes flat. Don't worry about it. But like, we've said this in other videos before, but in our Discord where we talk about these books, we usually have 2 channels for every single book. One is Thoughts and Criticism, which is a very nice title at this point because it's just negative things. And then the other one is Things We Still Like About This, or something adjacent to that.
Yeah.
The things we like about this section of book 5 was so pitiful that some of us started giving points for I did not audibly sigh at this scene.
I have 3 tabs. One of them is literally a tab of, I think it was when the Spren and everything came to Adeline, because I was like, oh,
Of course.
this like slightly reminds me of when Sanderson climaxes used to have an impact. I will tab it as something positive.
That feels like another life ago. That was so long.
Oh my god.
Like, this somewhat reminds me of Kaladin jumping in to save Adeline and Dalinar, which, was a well-written climax, which we said in the first live show. I will tab it.
I just looked through it because I wanted to find some verbatim comment because it's so funny. My first, and I think like one of 3 or maybe 4 entries into that channel is Adeline insisting on bringing his horse with him from Shadesmart. That's it. I just think the horse deserves to fly. And then I added, I'm doing this for my own sanity. So that is the level of positive thinking we had to do in order to find things about this book that we enjoyed. So bad.
Yeah, I have
bad.
one tab at the beginning, then the Adeline tab, and then another tab that I don't even remember.
That's because we all tried to delete this book from our brain.
Why did I tab? Becoming a herald is positive. I know I hated that. Maybe because you got dark brown eyes again. I was like,
oh yeah,
what did get since the beginning? At least this is what he got.
I think you said that at some point. You said something along the lines of like, at least he's a dark eyes again.
Yeah.
Again, so like bottom of the barrel kind of scraping. So you know what? Before we get into a lot of details, and also remember we did have like this pinboard of questions and stuff that were not answered anymore. I just want to see how many of them were completely left open. Like that's something we should check out at some point. But let's start off with the most basic thing that this book just didn't do. Structure.
Yeah.
So in case you didn't know, which, kudos for you for staying at this video. So book 5, Wind and Truth, is the culmination of the first arc in the Stormlight Archive series. The Stormlight Archive series is set to have 10 books. It is currently done with book 5. Good fucking riddance. And so the plan was always...
will probably come out in like 2 decades.
Yes, like he did say he was gonna take a break, which, you know, fair enough, I suppose. Maybe don't use that break to write 15 novels that all vary in shitty quality, but whatever. You do you, buddy. I don't control you anymore. But basically,
You
book
did?
5 was always planned. Well, I wish, you know, in my dreams. I was whispering to him. I was like, please don't do this. And then he did it. So whatever. But yeah, book 5 was always planned as this like semi culmination of the series. It was planned as the culmination, as the tipping point, as the climax of arc 1. And so a lot of things, especially in book 4, in book 4, Rhythm of War, were in preparation of the climax that was going to happen in book 5. It was always kind of like, especially after book 4, we knew that book 5 was going to take place over 10 days, because at the end of book 4 we get this like deadline essentially where Odium says that he is going to clash with he's going to choose a champion, and said champion is going to clash with the champion of honor, or well, just the champion on our guys' side, I guess, because honor is technically dead. Whatever, not the point. And so from the moment that book 4 ended, we knew that we had 10 days until a massive duel between two opposing forces that, at least to all of us, spelled out the characters are going to think that if they lose this, they essentially perish. They might not all immediately die, but the world as they know it is going to die. And so it sounded kind of important. The reason
Which,
I
by
say
the
it like
way,
that, yes.
Just before we start with the structure, with just as a concept, it already doesn't work for Sanderson, because we go into this book knowing this is the finale of an arc. So we can go into this book with a better than 50%, definitely, I would say 80 to 90% chance that Odium is going to win. The only difference is we don't know exactly how he's going to win. And I'm personally someone, I love retellings. As someone who loves retellings, I think knowing how the book is going to end technically is not necessarily a bad thing, because you can do so much with that. You can build tension. Like, it's crazy. It's kind of like the Hitchcock thing where you have a bomb, and in one point you know where the bomb is exactly, and you know how long it's going to take to go off.
Yes.
And on the other hand, you don't know the bomb, you're just surprised.
Yes.
Different types of building tension. One is often preferred because you build a tension over a longer time.
Yes.
And now we get to the structure. Why this doesn't work with Sanderson?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, and this is just a very generic comment here. By comment, I mean complaint. Why is the only book, and I have to stress this, the only book in the Stormlight Archive series that is set over a very precise amount of days, which is way more of a like precise time limit that we get than with any other books that he's written in this series so far? Why is this the longest book?
Yes.
You cannot keep up tension for over 1,300 pages. You can't do it. And you don't have to. You didn't have to if your structure were not reliant upon it.
And also that it's like, okay, so he announced before the book came out that this was going to be the longest of the books so far. And knowing that it's going to have this precise timeline, one would think whatever necessity caused them to adjust the printing process in order to accommodate this 1,400 page brick must be extremely important that it was included. And unfortunately, you could easily chop out at least 700 of these pages and it would be exactly the same.
Like everything along, like everything that has to do with Thylena, unnecessary.
Yep.
Completely unnecessary. I mean, it only got 3 chapters anyway, completely unnecessary. I'm gonna say that the Shattered Plains and Sixil, those chapters only exist to warrant Sunlit Man, where, thanks to Josh, who constantly reminded us Sixil is not going to die in this book.
We love you, Josh. This is very
in the
important.
Sunland
We
Man.
take
But
life
it pretty much
we love
only
Josh.
exists to set that up. And then the third one is Adolin, which Adolin is the only one where I would say, okay, there at the end was like, you didn't need the good first 2/3 of Adolin's chapter, like most of that. But with Azir, I will say, okay, you did have at least some tension there. They have lost these other parts. Are they going to be able to keep Azir, or are they gonna lose it as well? Everything else could have been reports. However, we don't have anyone to report to in Orith, because Dalinar decided to fuck off.
Yes. It became super clear, especially with so there's these illustrations throughout the book that show us all of the different kinds of characters that we're suddenly being introduced to that are like, whoa, at this vital moment where we should have this tension because we're racing against a clock. Who are all these people that I should suddenly care about? And who are all these various forms of singers or like fighters that we've never heard of before, even though we've been in battles upon battles since book 1. And the reason
not just in battles, we had legitimate perspectives from the fused, or well, not from the fused characters, but from someone living with the fused throughout the entirety of book 4 and or 3. I don't remember when the Venli chapters became important. I think it was 3. It might have been 3. We had so many opportunities to introduce more of the fused, and we didn't.
It really just became obvious. Like, we had so many of this, right? These kind of like specific imagery telling us about these specific fused or weapons or things that were suddenly inserted in here. And it's just so obvious that the reason that this is all here is because he has that game coming out based on the Cosmere, and it's like self-insert hype plus material for that. We didn't need it. I didn't give a shit.
The other thing that doesn't structurally work, and it doesn't work because, yes, it is technically the middle of the series, but it is the finale of an arc also. Structurally, it's something that a lot of fantasy books do. In a lot of fantasy books, especially ensemble books, you are introduced to a cast of character in the first book. The first book ends with something happening where the cast of characters is split up. So you spend the second book and often also a good amount of the third book with the cast of characters split up, doing their different things, often broadening the world building, and then in the finale we get it together again. I'm thinking about this right now because it's what happened in the Godkiller Chronicles trilogy, where, I mean, the third book isn't out yet, but the first book, everyone gets together. Second book now, it's not everyone is split up, but everyone's kind of off doing their own thing. Some of them are still locally connected, but they're still doing their own thing. And I'm gonna assume that in the third book it all comes back together again. We ended this book now with everyone separated. Like, Dalinar is dead, the Blackthorn isn't. What the fuck? We have Navani in Orithiro. We have Adolin in Azir, I think. Yasna,
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if Yasna is still in Thylena, if she fucked off back to Orithiro to lick her wounds. Who knows? I don't know. Kaladin is dead / a herald on Braze. And Shallan is in the spiritual realm? Spirit realm?
No, she's in Shadesmar now, I think.
Yeah.
Is she already in Shadesmar?
She's
she's in Shadesmar.
Yeah.
See, it's been a week and I can't remember. And it's supposed to feel like there's gonna be tension or something, but it feels like a random middle book and not like the finale of an arc.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only reason why it feels like the finale of an arc is because Odium now properly has taken over.
Yeah. And I feel like there might be an argument for like, okay, well, if we know that that's typically like a formulaic aspect of how we typically experience an arc within a series, it's okay to break that sometimes. But this just felt lackluster, lazy. I'm bored.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see anything here that's making me think, oh
No.
my God, I can't wait for the next one to see how this is
Yeah.
resolved. It's like
No.
everyone's tired.
Also with
Yeah.
at the end, the thing that I also loved at the end was Hoyt being like, well, you know, time is now passing more slowly on Roshar. I'm gonna go back and help Wax and Wayne. Because that was the hint. He's gonna go back to Scadrial, and
Wasn't he
and
already back in
gonna be the
Scadrial in
start of
that
the
one
Wax and Wayne
scene?
series.
I think he was already back in Scadrial when he like got demystified and then
Yeah,
don't know.
no, but like the beginning, the finale is him hiring as a coachman for Wax. Basically.
Oh yeah.
That's his culmination. Him being like, wait, whatever.
Basically, the big problem of this book is that all the other books build towards it. All the other books say that this book is going to be some sort of culmination, some sort of climax. And the climax is not only lackluster, it feels like the only thing this book is supposed to do is set up Arc 2. And another thing that also makes this incredibly clumsy as a book is that almost every single important character, I'm talking Shallan, Adolin, Kaladin, to an extent also Dalinar, even though I fucking hate the guy. But like all of these characters have had their climaxes respectively in their character arcs already. Most of them, or like a good amount of them, have had them in book 4. Some of them have had them previously and they're just now like settling into their role. Like Dalinar, for example, there could be an argument to be made that he had his climax in book 3 and then just steadily worked towards pretending to be an honorable person, which he is not. So, jot that down. But especially people like Shallan had their emotional culmination, their emotional climax in book 4. Shallan in book 4 is where she finally does in fact completely break down, has to accept that her power her power is basically making her worse because her power is basically just her masking everything and hiding every single emotion. So book 4, especially the like emotional climax of her arc, is her having to learn that she actually can't hide from it. That her trying to push down her emotions is actually creating this fourth person, which is formless, right? And so a lot of the emotional culmination of book 4 is Shallan going, I do have to try and speak truth, which for Lightweavers is basically one of their, like, it's their oath TM. I don't think they have a lot more oaths, actually. And so Shallan book 4 is her trying to let go of lying to herself over the trauma that she has. And book 5, at least towards the beginning, that was where we were still all right, is her getting her shard plate and things slowly settling in. However, because this book is almost 1,400 pages long, we did in fact have to do like a rehashing of the emotional arc that she already had in book 4. And this is something that consistently happens within the structure of book 5, is that points are either repeated on end or they're just dropped out of nowhere. Characters basically just behave the way they have to for a scene to move forward. Like, there's no character development. It's just, this character has to do this now. Like, for example, Maya. What the fuck was that? Why can she talk now? What
It's
happened?
The one thing. And then, we just completely turn around Kaladin's culmination of his arc in book 4 and his oath, his like 5th oath, which was something I will also protect myself or something.
I have to protect myself.
And then he's like, you know what? You know what though? I think it's fine. It's fine if I give up everything and become a herald, because now it is my decision. I don't feel like I have to do it anymore. It's my decision. What?
Okay, there's a lot of different directions we can go right now, but I don't know if anyone else
One
feels
second,
this
I
way.
love this comment. Does he think he's a moron prophet? I think this is supposed to be Mormon, but you know, he is a moron prophet.
I think he thinks very highly of himself, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't know if you've caught this in other live shows, Howell, but the like comparison to it being a religious text is actually not that far off, because a lot of the information that he gives out to readers is in forms of interviews and stuff like that, which, you know, we could talk about that at length, but like the fact that he calls it Word of Brandon.
Frustrating.
Yep.
Frustrating.
Yep. Anyway, we've talked about this a lot, so
yes. So, but like, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I feel like it's been a consistent thing where part of the climax or resolution of each book is Kaladin saying another ordeal and unlocking another layer of Super Saiyan. And when it happened for the 5th time, I was like, again, that's what we did all this for him to say something else, which is really dumb because it doesn't acknowledge his trauma, what he's working through, the gravity of who he is and how he exists in the structure or how he continues the structure. It's just, he said the right thing. Achievement unlock, go to the next book. And I'm like, that's so boring. Are we going to do this 5 more times?
Well, he's going to invent more oaths to swear, of course.
And it's also so stupid because like you like Kaladin structurally also doesn't work anymore because he's very obviously structurally and narratively supposed to be the hero. That's why you follow him the most with unlocking his oaths. Why you have this thing of every single climax is him either saying an oath or failing to say an oath in book 3. Right? That's his climax of book 3, not being able to say the 4th ideal. Then being able to say it in the 4th book again, and in the end, saying the 5th ideal in the 5th book. However, he was also no part of the actual storyline of this book.
No, he wasn't.
He was a therapist. We'll get to it. I don't even have anything to say anymore about it because it's just so stupid. He was completely sidelined. In my opinion, his storyline should have been after book 4 to leave the story.
Yes.
That would have been his character arc. That would have been a good culmination to his character arc. Or go in the way of like, you know, him saying the 5th ideal in I will protect myself, and that being his culmination in I am leaving. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I don't need to destroy myself repeatedly to save everyone else. Which, you know, is a hard thing, and it's something that genuinely is, I think, very complicated when it gets to fantasy books and stuff. It's like, it's the thing also in Supernatural repeatedly with Dean, right? Where it's like, it's a very interesting concept of having the hero who genuinely feels like he's the only one to be able to change the world or save the world. And obviously, for a reader, it might seem uninteresting following a hero who turns away from saving the world, who ends up being maybe egotistical and saying, I don't need this, I don't want this, there's other people, and accepting that there are other people. But I think that should have been Kaladin's arc. I think that would have made more sense. That's like, that would have been the culmination of his arc. Instead of like, it was literally there with his 5th ideal. I don't remember what the wording of the 5th ideal was exactly anymore. Maybe I'll
somewhere
find
in
it.
The book. Go for it. You know, while you look for that, I wanna quickly address something else about the structure, because the reason I was so genuinely shocked reading this, because, you know, let's be crystal clear. None of us expected to like book 5, but I do believe that also none of us expected for it to be this bad.
Yes.
Like, I did not expect it to be this bad. And the reason, or like one of the reasons I was so shocked is because Brandon Sanderson has done better in the past. I said that at some point in the group chat as well. But one of his better series when it comes to the pacing, when it comes to basically everything, in all fairness, but specifically when it comes to broadening the world in smaller scopes. So we go from the characters thinking they know everything all the way to the characters knowing they don't know everything, but having learned a whole lot more along the way, is Mistborn Era 1. In Mistborn Era 1, we basically start the first book out with characters knowing, I want to say, 6 metal types, maybe? I think it's 6. So in Mistborn, there's characters who get powers by swallowing certain metals, and depending on what kind of metal they swallow, they get different powers, right? It's actually one of his nicer magic systems, in my humble opinion, but you know. And the first book is all about one character being taught something. We have the whole scrappy orphan and somewhat hardened mentor situation going on. And so the first book gives this idea of especially our mentor figure knowing everything about the world, and specifically knowing everything about the magic world. But the more we go on, especially towards the last book, the more we understand, and the more the characters understand, that what we know barely scratches the surface. I think the ultimate number of metals they find is 16 in book 3, I want to say. And we also go all the way from let's do a heist and also maybe topple the Lord Ruler in book 1, all the way to the entire world is ending, which feels like a somewhat similar premise to what is going on in Stormlight Archive. And in Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson managed to slowly broaden the world, which he did partially through his character cast, finding out different things as they go along, all the way to understanding that the character they fought against in the first book actually kind of tried to prepare them for the end of the world. It's a bit too complicated to get into right now, but essentially he managed to put everything into the right places so it made sense for the characters to find out certain information, which then changed the way they interacted with the world. This is not present in this book whatsoever. The characters learn information, I shit you not, by watching a puppet play, essentially, in front of them, that just bullshits its way through the entire reason why Roshar was created the way that it was. There is no intrigue, there is no interest, there is just pages upon pages upon pages of info dumpiest dumps I have ever seen. Also, and here's the biggest problem, this does not work for the book that you intend to be set over 10 days. This does not work for a book that is only trying to bridge a very, very short gap from one event, which was the end of book 4 with the contract between Odium and Dalinar, to the end of book 5, the actual duel itself and the aftermath of it. It makes no goddamn sense to put all of this world building now because we don't need it, the characters don't need it, and it does not fucking make sense. None of it was prepared beforehand either. There are so many moments in book 5 that have no consistency towards whatever happened in the previous books, and we shouldn't have to desperately try to keep track of names, places, and development of the characters and the planets for it to barely make sense. Like, I am a fantasy reader since birth, essentially. I started reading fantasy books when I learned to read, okay? I read The Never-Ending Story when I was like 7, right? So I know my shit when it comes to fantasy. And I do dare say that I have the brain for fantasy. And I understand that high fantasy can be complicated, and that sometimes some high fantasy books are more complicated than others. That's fine. That's not my problem. My problem is that we needed none of that information, and it makes no sense, and trying to keep track of it gave me a headache. And that is a bar that you need to crawl under first, okay? So what happened in this book? Genuinely, what happened?
It's like this book didn't feel like Sanderson was trying to reveal stuff. It felt like Sanderson was trying to keep stuff from us, or not book the series. And like book 4 could have been a place to reveal a lot of things. Should have been a place. Actually, between book 3 and book 4, because in book 3 we get the information of humans are not native to Roshar. So we should have spent book 4 trying to find out and trying to figure out where did they come from? How did they come here? How did all of this end up? Like, this should have been information, maybe aside from a few tidbits. So, you can have a repeat of Mistborn or whatever and have Odium have the upper hand. That book 4 should have ended with. This should have been information y'all had before you went into the contest of champion. So because also it doesn't make sense. Dalinar, who is convinced he will be the champion, he is honors champion. He's set up as honors champion. He has said he will be honors champion. There's no one else who can do it but him. Why do you go into a realm where you were specifically told it's very easy to lose time in that realm when you have 10 days until the competition?
Makes no sense.
It does not make sense. It doesn't even make sense for Dalinar, whose decisions almost never make sense. It's
because he's the only one.
The only reason is Sanderson has still a buttload of information that readers have asked for that he needs to share with us.
Yep.
And he needs someone to leave. Like, I'm sorry, but couldn't that have been the thing, the travel that Kaladin went on instead of
this thing with Seth? It was so dumb. It was so dumb.
It makes no goddamn sense. And the thing is also, like, a lot of book 5 genuinely felt like Brandon Sanderson was desperately trying to play catch up to all the information he had neglected to inform us of previously. And again, I would like to stress it, he has done better. I don't even have to look to other authors. I just have to look to other series of his. I genuinely don't understand what happened with this book.
And like we had a secondary or a second character who went into the spirit realm. We had Shallan. Just find a way that like Shallan, Ryan, and Renarin go in there, and then while they move in there, they realize shit. Mraize and the Ghost Bloods came with us.
And it also makes so much more sense because Shallan is like at least somewhat set up as a scholar character.
Right.
Renarin, the same thing.
And it would be way more tension because you now have her having to find this information while also at the same time not revealing the location of Bahadur Mishram to the Ghost Bloods.
But we couldn't do that because he was too busy doing fan service because Renarin and Elaine are gay. that was their purpose. It was fan service. Like, it was so, I need everyone who's watching this to understand that this was some of the worst fan service that I have ever seen, and also some of the poorest quality written queer characters that I've personally ever read, because you can't tell me that you are an author who has spent time properly planning and thinking about the relationships of these characters when we have gotten no hints of their sexual orientation, identity, expression in any way being relevant or something that they've struggled with in any book up until this point. And suddenly it is the core of this person's arc for the entire thing. It screams checking a box. And I was very upset by that. Same.
It was also like the fan squealing thing with Shallan was it hurt physically.
Okay, can I please listen? I'm so upset. I'm so upset at the whole Shallan being an ally thing. And here is why. Renarin is a human. Verlaine is a listener?
Yes.
Yes, a listener.
Elaine is a listener.
Okay. They have been in battle on the Shattered Plains with the Singers, with Relaine's extension of his people since book 1. We have seen all of our other characters express xenophobia in some form or fashion. He is his own sensitivity reader. Yes. And I would love to know if any of his editors actually made any of the comments that we're making, and I need to know if any of it was it discussed. So Shallan, there is a specific scene that lives rent-free in my mind. I believe it's in book 2, where she has slaves. She has indigenous slaves, and those slaves are killed along with another human like servant of hers, and the only one that she expresses remorse over is the human. She actually uses a word that in this world will be considered, I guess, a slur by calling them the Voidbringers and saying, oh, well, you know, like they're these things anyway, they're the enemy, so like who cares if they're dead, whatever. And like we never revisit that or any of the other microaggressions that she does along the way, any of like her like reverse racist talk, like all of this shit that she says that is so xenophobic that now all of a sudden she's a queer ally to her brother-in-law and his indigenous boyfriend.
Brother-in-law, by the way, where she also multiple times during the series expressed feeling uncomfortable because he is written as autistic, or he is supposed to be autistic representation or whatever. And the maximum we get is of her inner monologue of, I currently am trying to not feel as uncomfortable around him as I used to.
So,
and this is also what we mean. This is what we mean when we say that the characters in this book specifically acted the way they did because they had to in order for the plot to move. Like, there was no development of the relationship at all.
I will still stand by that there was like 1 or 2 chapters where Sanderson was oddly good at writing a slow burn because he was so uncomfortable writing Renarin and Lane that he didn't know how to approach it. And so there was like 2 chapters or something from Renarin's perspective. I think they were like,
we were side-eyeing it so hard.
So weird.
Something I want to make super clear, and I hope this is not a hot take for anybody who's watching this, but if you call yourself an ally and that allyship does not extend to Black and brown bodies that are also queer, you're not an ally.
Correct.
So her suddenly being an ally to her brother-in-law does not necessarily extend to her being ally to her brother-in-law's indigenous boyfriend. So I'm not buying it.
Also, I will say I hated how, I mean, it wasn't well done, obviously, from the beginning. But I hate how every single other romance is just allowed to be a romance. This romance had to have a purpose. There had to be a reason, which was to calm down Ba'ad Mishram. Being like, look, we come to you, the listeners who betrayed you, which I still don't get what the listeners' problem was with Ba'ad Mishram. Like, the thing we saw was that she was trying to figure out things with the humans, and then Honor betrayed her. But before that, already the listeners... Anyway, we'll never figure it out. We'll just have to shelve it and leave it alone. And then a human who, you know, belongs to the people who imprisoned her.
Yeah. Can I suggest a very small round of applause, though, for the fact that he actually used the word sex?
There wasn't much shower sex.
I do believe that was also one of your, I think that was your first positive comment, if I remember.
Yeah, I was like, wow. We're adulting.
Ben is confirmed kinky. You
Yeah.
know? She likes things in the bedroom that aren't just missionary
Wow.
style.
Wow.
Like I need people to understand that we've commented about this in most of our previous videos in some way of like it just really feels like in his previous books there was a lot of kink shaming going on, and all of a sudden for this to be like, oh my gosh, we have a shower scene. Who is this man? Like, I'm not giving him too much credit because I honestly feel like it's the bare minimum, but I digress.
You know, like that's okay. Like he can have a little bit. Okay, so I'm trying to find the actual quote because now we can actually get into the nitty and gritty details. I feel like I don't know if I can find it, but if we want to, what? I kept leaving notes about character inconsistency. I'm not gonna go over all of these. Anyway, so one thing that is something that is also deeply frustrating in this book is, so for the majority of the series we've had this like repeated struggle come up of dark eyes versus light eyes. It was horribly handled in the other books as well, okay, so let's be very clear here. We've talked about this and I'm pretty sure every single live show because it was a topic in every single live show and it was fucked up in every single book. But in this book, it is especially egregious because all of a sudden we're pretending like the struggles never existed in the first place because everyone is suddenly cured because Dalinar was just like, racism doesn't exist anymore, period. Which is not how any of this works. But the one scene, I'm trying to find it, I swear. I don't know if
Navani,
I can.
it's at the very beginning, I think.
No, it's not the Navani scene. No.
The Moash thing?
No.
I'm screaming eternally. Oh.
Okay, so the scene that I'm trying to find, I'm just gonna describe it and then we're gonna see what happens. But basically, I found it. I'm so good at this game. Okay, so the entire purpose of Adelin's arc in this book in particular is that he goes to Azir, which is one of the bigger countries, like is it a kingdom? I don't remember. Whatever
it's an imperium. Like there's an emperor, and they kind of, which is also the weird thing. There's more of a deal of the surrounding kingdoms, like the Ishi people. And I forgot which it was. Like going against Azir and like throwing in their lot with odium, and there being a comment of like, of course you oppress them. It's like more of a focus almost than a Lethkar and like their warmongering ever was.
And like we had a small point and then we just veered off because it's never mentioned again. But and this is the scene that I'm talking about, actually, Nalka. This is the scene I'm talking about. So with Adolin, there's this whole thing where he goes to Azir because he has to defend it, because the entire thing that happens throughout the book, which again, this is a point that could legitimately and did legitimately lend like the tiniest bit of tension. But basically Odium tries to attack all the main cities of the countries because once he has the cities under control, he has the countries or continents, depending on how large this thing is, under control, which is bad. We don't want that to happen. And so a lot of the forces in this book are trying to split up between different cities and hotspots that they know Odium is going to attack. And Adolin is the one to go to Azir. Generally speaking, this is not a problem, but this is where the issue started, because Adolin is always made up as this person who leads, first of all, by example, and second of all, by camaraderie, which again is also not a bad thing. He's consistently made up as this leader who knows his people by heart, and he knows them by name, and he is with them through thick and thin, and they can talk to him and joke with him, and he is able to lead them. Again, this is something that is ingrained in his character. This is not something I have a problem with. But throughout the whole Azir arc, and this is relatively early on in this book, which means it is on page 355. This is early for this book. Let's remember that it is 1,400 pages. So during that time, he meets a former officer, I believe. His name is Kolat, and Kolat is a light eyes. And they start talking about why Kolat actually joined Adolin, why he's here in the first place. And he basically says that Kolat got very, very close to being a full Windrunner but then was rejected by a spren. And then we get this dialogue. I was so mad at it. We get this dialogue where Kolat says, I don't even know if it was something I did, Adeline. That's what really hurts. The honest spren evaluating us were ones who hated the leadership at lasting integrity and had left before you got there. They practically fawned over Kaladin and Bridge 4. Every spren wanted someone like him, not someone like me. You mean light-eyed. Kolat nodded. I feel like we shouldn't have to unpack this, but we do because this is prevalent in this book. The fact that Kolat is of the opinion that he is somehow at a disadvantage because he is not dark-eyed, because he will not be accepted into Bridge 4, which was the originator of the Windrunners, because this is where Kaladin is from, right? Like, you know, it all started there, which again could have been a really nice origin story of like the underdog rising up and whatever. But like the fact that Kolat is so immediate, and Adeline as well, like the comment of you mean light-eyed is from Adeline's perspective, right? The fact that they are so immediately ready to say that Kolat was at a disadvantage because he was not dark eyes is horrendous. Because we never fully addressed the dark eyes versus light eyes situation in the first place, and now we're suddenly hit with the worst reverse racism card I have seen in this. This is basically a white person complaining against DEI.
Yeah.
That is what this is. And it is infuriating. It is a small section. It gets brought up, I think, like 1 or 2 times more, maybe, because there's also one scene where Adeline basically tells Kolat, like, he is one of the best men who's ever served him, blah, blah, blah. Again, I technically wouldn't have an issue with this if this scene didn't exist. Right. But, like, this scene is essentially a white person complaining that a black person got a job.
Yes. Okay.
That is what this scene is.
Okay. I want to say something, but I need you to follow me for a second because I want us to stay in the light eyes, dark eyes conversation, but I also want to add an extension to that to make a point. Is that, okay, we have this example of inserted reverse racism. We also have some scenes where I think it was Navani or somebody, I don't remember who, but there was a female character saying that the men are having it rough because they're being discriminated against for wanting.
That was Navani.
That was Navani, right? Like, so like defending the men who are experiencing something, but I feel like what was said there was said with more gusto than we've really gotten against the sexism that the women characters.
It was literally like, yes, women have it hard, but oh my god, men. I never thought about men. Like, how horrible must it be to not be able to read? It was literally something along those lines.
Yeah, yes, yeah, it was.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
So we have reverse racism. We have but men have it so hard, even though this is a majoritively like oppressing women and other subgroups.
It's a patriarchy.
It's a patriarchy, right? Which is like, why is this a thing that we're talking about right now? We have Dalinar both in book 4 and in the end of book 5 being like, more or less, I know I'm a bigot. I'm responsible. Hurrah, I've said the word. And doing nothing with that information. And
we have Yasna's really weird girl boss moment of like, am I truly a feminist if I want to fight?
Yes.
Like am I then not upholding masculine ideals?
Right. And it's like, I want us to stay on the light eyes and dark eyes situation, but I'm saying all this to say these are choices that the author has made to insert. And when someone tells you who they are, listen to them, because this is not the first time that we're having this conversation. And I'm like, just tell me what you really feel, Brandon Sanderson. I really would like to know.
Even with the light eyes, dark eyes, the way he decides to like make sure that we know it's not an issue anymore is just really fucking weird, because the way it comes up is Navani thinking about how there's now dark-eyed officers, and I can't call them Bright Lord. What do I call a dark-eyed officer? What do I call a dark-eyed Bright Lord?
Oh my goodness, she's so progressive because she's thinking about like, okay, and I need it to be clear also that it's like they're saying these things they're trying to give us the impression that all of the characters that we should be rooting for are generally on the same page of light eyes, dark eyes, schism is not really an issue. But the one person who has a problem with it and calls it out on page is Moash, who says specifically that he is like, you guys are wrong. The way you treat dark guys is, he claims it as his motivation. The internal, the racist structure of this oppressive patriarchy is what has motivated him to get to this point. And it's made very clear on page that he is the only person who remains to have an issue with this. And again, that was an authorial choice that I do not support.
Except he's more so shown as having an issue personally with the Colin family.
Yeah.
And he is not actually shown anymore because we need to have a reason to not believe him anymore and for him to no longer be believable. So the only thing he is doing since book 4 is killing windrunners and killing characters we love.
Because we have to justify
actually, I'm just a second. The windrunner he killed, wasn't that Drehy?
No, he killed Leighton.
He killed Leighton. Otherwise, Sanderson would have added his bury the gays also to his list of tropes, because that's the second or the first gay character that we had. Yes, there has always been red flags like this from his earlier works. My go-to example is always Mistborn, where you have the Ska, where it's set up as the elite of this city believe the Scar are stupid, only good for menial work, love having sex, and because of that they reproduce a lot. So basically all things that have been said to argue why it's okay to enslave people from Africa, and then chattel slavery and everything, likening them to basically animals. And then within the first and the second book, we have a main character in Elend who is a noble who's like, he believes, no, that's not true, that's just prejudices, and the Ska are basically the same as humans or as them. And he's proven right, quote unquote, in connecting with Vin and connecting with a lot of Ska, yada, yada, yada. But then we get, in the third book, we get the revelation, no, actually, I mean, it's no longer true now, because like between the, I forgot what the non-Ska were called, but there was so much mixing between Ska and non-Ska that it's basically impossible to tell who is what. But originally the Ska were created as a group of people that is more stupid and that easily reproduces, so there can be a lot of them or something. So yeah.
It's fun.
It's like
a lot of fun.
It's being like, there's these prejudices are wrong. Now, actually they were true a long time ago.
Yep.
I want to make on the last comment there to add to that. Yeah. So like, and that's part of the reason why we decided to do this, right? So like, it has actually happened IRL where I've met people and they're like, oh, I read Stormlight, isn't it great? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not a fan of the way that it handles these themes of colonialism. And they go, what themes of colonialism? But that's like literally what the book is founded on. But I feel like it partly, it's like, I want to give a little bit of grace, partly maybe within like the first book, at least in some ways, because there's just so much to sift through. These books are so convoluted and long and constantly like pivoting points. Like we're not even finishing full thoughts in a lot of the time, which is one of the bigger complaints that we have, which is like, oh my God, can we finish this conversation before we go on to the next chapter? Where it's like, if you're not really paying attention to everything that's not related to the magical part of the world building, you might not have really picked it up in the first book. But like by the time we get here, I'm not giving anybody an excuse.
I'm actually kind of scared. For those of you who do not know, I used to love Sanderson. Sanderson used to be my favorite author. up until book 4. I read book 4 in 24 hours because I set a challenge for myself. I want to try to read this book in 24 hours. I read it in 24 hours. I still loved it. I did not end up like kind of changing until I did a big Sanderson reread in 2021.
Which is how we met.
Yay!
Which is how all of us met. And I didn't end up finishing the 4th book. So this was the first time I reread the 4th book. But I remember, and this was when I still loved Sanderson. I was like, there's actually a lot of themes of colonialism in here. I want to make a video on it. And it still was overall very positive. I don't remember what exactly I said in that video anymore. And I kind of want to make a like reacting to me earlier, seeing what I still agree with, seeing what I maybe even through my rose-tinted glasses already like clocked a little bit. But also I'm really scared to do that. I remember that I ended the video being like, there's a lot of things in here where I'm like very weary of this, but also I don't want to make any judgments until reading book 5. I did change my opinion on that. I think it's fine making judgments even after the 2nd book, really. The 1st book, I'm not sure how much we can say, because in the 1st book we don't really get that much yet, right, of the listeners. But
very true, yeah.
Yeah, it's
speaking about the listeners, actually.
Just a second, it's so hard because like a lot of the things I feel that are in there are also very dog whistly.
Yes.
So a lot of things, if you're very familiar with a lot of colonial, decolonial, post-colonial theory, it's like big fat neon signs, very obvious. But if you're not very familiar with it, you might go like, what's your problem? Why is it a problem that listeners don't have art?
Yeah.
What is the issue there? And I think that's one of the really icky things about it also.
Very true, very true. And this is kind of this thing of like he hides it under this veneer of fantasy world building, because a lot of these things that we are now talking about are throwaway sentences. Like the whole conversation between Adeline and Kolat, I remarked upon it because I saw it when reading, and Steph, who had gotten past this point already, hadn't seen it because it is legitimately like 2 sentences. And in a book this massive, I am so mad that it is so floppy because I like floppy books, but what the fuck, man? I'm angry at it.
I just want to say, this is a floppy book. The bindings are still starting to loosen because
yeah, with me too. And like I exclusively read this lying flat on the table because I couldn't really prop it up with my hands because I was afraid of my wrists breaking. Anyway, so my point is a lot of these things are in fact throwaway sentences, and even while trying to read it as critically as possible without wanting to shoot yourself, it is hard to pay attention to every single sentence. It is hard to pay attention to every single utterance. I'm pretty sure that I've also missed a ton. I'm pretty sure every single one of us 3 has missed something, which is why I'm super happy that we did this together, because we paid attention to different things in the end. Like, we repeated some talking points, yes, of course, because we are generally of more or less the same opinion. But we did, in fact, end up finding different things because we just happened to pay attention to that one sentence. And so it is in fact very easy to miss some of these things. Not all of them, mind you, but some of them are basically just half a line. And then we're kind of done with the talking point again. And it only appears again, like maybe 1.5 books later, which in this case is like over 2,000 pages usually. So it is super easy to miss stuff like this. The small stuff. The big stuff, that's a different thing. But coming back to the singers, listeners, whatever thing, bad. So Venli is one of the more interesting characters that could have done a whole lot for us, and then she didn't because Brandon Sanderson didn't know what to do with her. Venli is one of the listeners. Now, the difference between the listeners and singers is basically the singers were always on Odium's side all along. They are also the more aggressive ones, basically. Like, that's how they're portrayed, which bad, but still, that's essentially the difference. And the listeners basically split off from that group a long time ago and are now their own group. Is it ever fully explained or interrogated as to how else they differentiate themselves from the singers? No, because that would require Brandon Sanderson to care about the indigenous population of Roshar, which he does not. However, Venli is a very interesting character at the beginning of her arc because she is a listener, but she does in fact start a pact with Odium. She gets she gets very enamored with trying to find some kind of power that she can use in order to help her people, which then leads her down the path of corruption. This is a pretty standard arc in fantasy again. Generally, not really an issue, even though, you know, we could say that it's kind of icky to say, I need power to save my people from extinction. But now I'm evil. So, you know, a lot of things to unpack there. But essentially, Venli becomes a very interesting character, specifically in book 3, if I remember correctly, where we see her join the Fused, which are basically rebirthed, reborn souls of the singers from days past, who essentially are the main aggravators and aggressors in this fight between the singers and the humans. And she joins these Fused and she starts working for them. And so we get this very interesting perspective of a listener being part of a singer slash fused avalanche, essentially, and her trying to find a way to live with that in a way. And so we have parts of her being incredibly aggressive because of course she's like the humans killed essentially my entire family, or almost my entire family. She's convinced they've killed everyone. We then later find out that's not the case. Also a little bit hand wavy, but you know, whatever at this point. And so she struggles with hating the humans, but she also consistently has to be the voice of reason. This is also something that we've negatively talked about in, I think, live streams 3 and 4. But in book 5, she becomes a absolute non-character. And I am so mad about this, because the only thing we get of her is she finds her people again, because part of the listeners have actually survived. All of a sudden, we have to be the big pacifists, because why not? It's not like Brandon Sanderson doesn't understand pacifism. He doesn't, spoiler alert. We have to be the big pacifists. We have to be the big, there's some good humans and then there's some bad humans. And like also there's a lot of bad Fused because they all listen to Odium and that's bad. So we're gonna try and fight against that with the power of love, friendship, and humming a song. And it is so aggravating because the only thing she does in this book is completely revert as a character. There's nothing interesting about her anymore. There's nothing about her still struggling with Odium. There's nothing about her still struggling with being angry at the humans just because she got her mom back, which is, you know, her older sister still died. Almost everyone she loved still died. But
yeah,
no.
but she blames herself for that, so that's fine.
Yeah, like it's just her fault, right? Like it's not like the humans have consistently hunted singers into extinction and slavery. They would never do that.
The thing is also that I think like legitimately it could have been interesting, the whole thing with well, the Shattered Plains now belongs to the listeners, and Odium said that he would allow the listeners their territory. However, it had to be so hush-hush, secret that it kind of came out of nowhere. We just know that Sixil met with Venli.
Yep.
And that's it.
Well,
pretty much.
Because remember, and I think in the last book, Dalinar, the idea of a two-state solution came up, and Dalinar was like, "Ooh, no, we can't do that." So it's got to happen on the hush. But I think part of the reason why I think Bentley is such a non-character in here is because a resident human loving representative of the singers TM is Relaine saying, "Oh, but humans are actually great. Look, one of them's my boyfriend."
Yeah.
And also we had to add now that Relaine also actually was bullied a lot by the listeners, and no one wanted him among the singers anyway because he was gay. And so actually the first time that he belonged anywhere was Bridge 4. Don't you know?
Yes,
yes, exactly. That's our point. It's so bad. Also, I just hate how we have these two prominent listener characters, Relaine and Venli, and we managed to do nothing with both of them. Also, fun fact with the whole like hush contract between Zigzil and Venli, it is very important to note that the way it is written is one throwaway line that essentially says they have acknowledged that the land was originally ours. It is quite literally land back acknowledgements in half a sentence, and that's it. It's empty words. It's nothing else.
That new singer without rhythms or whatever, what's his point? What's his deal?
I don't know.
Why do we get a new character?
Maybe we just need it as a counterpoint to Renarin learning
I guess it's because like we killed off all the other interesting singer characters, already ran over to the humans, like fused.
Yeah.
We don't have Lashwi anymore. Raboniel died, and the pursuer guy also died, so
Yeah. Anyway, the point is, so many of these characters are reduced to basically nothing. And the thing is, I wouldn't have wanted book 5 specifically to like have a discussion about a contract between the listeners and the humans. I actually would not have wanted that, because once more, this is supposed to be a climactic book leading up to a battle that we are relatively certain is going to end up with Odium winning, right? There would actually not have been space to do that. What aggravates me is that Brandon Sanderson made space for it, and that space was ridiculous and made no sense and reduced the entire thing to, oh, I guess it was a misunderstanding, but everything is all right because we acknowledge that you have land. While I have to repeat, Urithiru, which is the biggest bastion in the Shattered Plains right now, staunchly remains in human hands.
It doesn't even actually, because the thing with Urithiru is, which I do not get, like every single one who holds even a modicum of power fucked off. Dalinar and Navani fucked off. Kaladin, who was asked to be Dalinar's heir for some reason, so we can have a fucking moment of him being like, I guess that's why Dalinar asked me to be his heir, also is gone.
Everyone
Yasna
is gone.
is in Talena. Adolin is in Azir. Shallan, Renarin and Rulain are, I mean, not that Rulain is important, but Shallan and Renarin are also gone. Zigzil, who is the current commander of the Windrunners, is also gone. So the only people who are left are Wind and Lift dressing up as Namani. Like, what?
Right after
you literally spent 1,000 pages last book trying to get this fucking tower back.
Yes, and on top of
now
that,
we're leaving it within 100 pages. What?
Yes, not only within 100 pages, but within timeline of the story, within 48 hours of them getting it back. It's so stupid.
Do you understand? Does everyone understand why this book fucking broke us? Because we legitimately did not expect it to be this bad. Like, I cannot stress this enough times. We did not expect for it to be this bad. We expected not to like it. We did not expect to look at this book and go, who wrote this?
No, it's like, it feels like, I don't know if this is a good or bad comparison. I don't care. It's like watching One Piece, and then they find the One Piece, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, that's done. Throw that in the trash. Move on to the. Wait, we just did a thing. Come back. Like, talk about the thing we just did. I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, honestly.
He wouldn't know a historian if it hit him in the face, honestly.
No, like, legitimately, Howell, the funniest thing about this is he legitimately had sensitivity readers for the types of swords that he was using, but not for like indigenous representation or anything like that.
By the way, and the sensitivity reader is someone who is in the fantasy community very, very, very notorious about being a misogynist, racist asshole.
It's Shadiversity.
Yeah.
God.
It's bad.
It's a Mormon buddy.
Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. I'm just saying.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, all right. So you know what we haven't talked about yet. You know what we haven't talked about yet. What still kind of belongs to the whole everything was bullshit, but especially the structure. What the fuck was up with Gavinor? What the fuck was that?
By the way, before we started this live, I went on to, I think it was 17th Shard, Copper Mine, one of those ones. I looked at the timeline of Aesudan. Aesudan, according to the wikis, never left Kholinar. Elhokar, think 8 years ago at this point, I don't know. After Gavilar's death, went to the Shattered Plains. Never left the Shattered Plains. Gavinor was born about 3 years after the death of Gavilar. Which, in fact, because a Rosharan year is longer than our year, it's more than 3 years, 3 Earth years. When the fuck did the two of them fuck? That's what I want to know. Like,
maybe human pregnancy on Roshar is different also. Maybe it's like it's 3 years.
It's like a fucking giraffe carrying or what? Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, so so in the very beginning of the first book, we have all of our Lethkar characters move away from Kholinar, which is the main city of Lethkar, to the Shattered Plains, where they start waging a war against the listeners. This includes Elhokar, who is the father of Gavinor, who becomes important in this book for whatever goddamn reason, because he sure as hell was not important before that, but whatever. First of all, as Sarah has now adequately shown, it makes no sense as to how this boy exactly exists in the first place. Second of all, again, he kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. Like, I was very confused as to why we didn't spend like a single thought on him before. But then again, we also didn't really spend a single thought on Kholinar specifically up until it was like, oh, by the way, we kind of need to get it back now. Whoopsie daisy. Also, we haven't heard from them in like over a year, and you're like, okay. Shouldn't you have worried before? But for sure, whatever. And
can I add something?
Yes.
That just bothers me. So, yes, that too, Josh. But like, okay, when Navani and Gavinor. Sorry, Gavinor. I feel like I'm saying Pokemon names, which would be
little Gav and old Gav.
Yeah, but it's like evolution, the pre-evolution, like. So Gavinor, Navani, and Dalinar spend, I guess, like, I don't know if it's 8 of the 10 days or however long they're in going through the visions, and then Gavinor is like being seen as a spren, and then every once in a while he pops in like, Grandma, Grandpa, what's happening? And then they actually like explain to him what the fuck is going on. And I'm like, he's a little kid. Be more creative. Like, where are we protecting his, not even his innocence, his sanity and everything that's fucking going on as he's like teleporting through time and memory? And they're like, don't worry, grandson. We're actually doing this whole thing because we have a plan to go back in time and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. He's a little kid. Just be like, it's a game, honey. We're playing a game. I'm so sorry. Stop crying.
And then to be fair, I have to be honest, I was skimming pretty hard at that point. But it also feels like Sanderson, like in the scene when Navani left the spirit realm, like we were even given a hint that Odium had just switched out Gavinor. Who apparently within the spirit realm, I guess time passes more like differently, so he's now 30 years old or something.
No, not time passes differently. Not time passes differently. Odium made the time pass differently because Navani and Dalinar were completely fine. I'm very mad about this scene.
It went
it's like
So basically what happens, to explain this, we said that Dalinar and Navani fucked off into the spiritual realm, right? Which was bullshit, because Wit at the very beginning of that scene explained to them that they could very easily lose track of time. This created tension for a modicum of 5 seconds, after which we then realized this does not apply to these two because they're main characters and nothing applies to them if it doesn't have to. However, towards not the end of this book, because I think we still had like 500 pages left, but towards what could have been the end of this book, we have this scene where Navani and then later on Dalinar actually escape the spiritual realm. Everything is fine. And they've managed to do this in like around about the exact amount of days they had left. Hooray! Huzzah! What a coincidence.
Like, except for a few hours, because obviously
essentially
it has
that.
to be.
And we still had this problem that everyone, including the readers and the characters, did not fully know who Odium was going to choose as a champion. And so the big plot twist, the big twist that came out of nowhere and was a massive fuck you to any kind of preparation for this, was the fact that Gavinor had actually never left the spiritual realm, then suddenly managed to like spend about 20 years or something in there. So he's now a grown-ass man, and he has been trained to hate Dalinar because Odium kept showing him like bad snippets of Dalinar's life as the Blackthorn or whatever. I have something to say about this in just a second as well, because it kept pissing me off. But essentially he's been turned against Dalinar, and so now he fights on Odium's side. And you know, Dalinar was emotional about this. I was not, because I was over here like, what kind of convenient ass bullshit is this?
Also, it was stupid because the way I understood it, the problem is that there will be passing too much time in the real world and not little enough time. But I guess they spend like thousands of years in there, and it was like 10 days in our world. Whatever. I get it.
Bullshit.
But like, the thing that was so stupid to me is there was no real relationship built between Gavinor and Dalinar. Like, I mean, sure, there were comments of like, Gav is sad because his grandpa can never spend time with him or something. But that's not enough setup for me to where then he's shown like 2 scenes. One where I mean, it was like hinted at already, I guess, because I did assume that whenever Gav was like, I can hear my dad, I can hear my father, that it's Odium, because where would he know what his dad sounds like? So it has to be Odium, obviously. But it was never done in a way where it felt warranted that he's now on Odium's side. And I mean, sure, you saw Dalinar punch your dad once, and you saw, to be fair, the burning is like a good argument, but within the division, Dalinar stood against the burning and like saved the city and stuff again. So it was...
And like, okay, so 2 things about this thing again. So first of all, again, what people who haven't read this book and don't want to don't have to understand is the duel between the Champion of Honor and the Champion of Odium was the big thing, TM, that we were working towards from the ending of the 4th book. So to have this be between Dalinar, you know, he was the boring but understandable choice, and a character we spent like, I don't know, 20 chapters on max, was insulting because there was no build-up. It just happened out of nowhere because Brandon Sanderson was like, you know what's emotional? When a grandson gets taught to hate his grandpa and then they have to fight. Ooh, tension. No, you have to build tension for it to warrant something. And the second thing that pissed me off is throughout these visions that they have in the spiritual realm, every once in a while, we do get these small scenes where Gavinor is very upset about something that Dalinar does. And either he's with Navani at this point, and Navani is smitten with Dalinar for reasons I cannot comprehend, but whatever. Either Navani is then telling him, like, you know, well, this is not your grandpa anymore, or it's Dalinar basically saying, like, well, I'm trying to turn a new leaf. And the thing that consistently pissed me off about this is that Navani kept saying stuff like, this isn't your grandpa. And I'm like, yes, the fuck it is. Yes, the fuck it is. Yeah, sure, whatever. He had a growth spurt. I don't fucking care. The growth spurt he had was he was an amnesiac for, I don't know, like 5 to 7 years or something, and then he magically regained all his pain, and now everything is forgiven. That was his emotional character arc in that regard, which pisses me off to no end, which pisses all of us off to no end. But to consistently do this thing of, oh, that was the Blackthorn, not Dalinar. Shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. It feels completely
genuine.
counterintuitive. Yeah, it feels completely counterintuitive to the whole point of him in the last book and this one being like you can't have my pain. I'm taking responsibility. But then the people closest to you are making excuses and saying, "Oh, but that wasn't you, honey." And it's like, no, shut the fuck up. Let him.
Can we also talk? I just had a realization that like Dalinar's arc, like we don't like Dalinar. I just want to say I don't like Dalinar. We don't like Dalinar, but I also can't see anyone who loves Dalinar being satisfied with this ending. Because we have the ending. We have this entire journey he goes on in this book is to grasp Honor's power. His consistent character trait throughout the entirety of the books was always Dalinar knows best. Dalinar has to be the one to do everything. Dalinar knows best. He did not in any book start a journey of realizing, hey, maybe I'm not the one who knows best. Maybe, hey, I'm not the one who should do things. So it comes absolutely out of nowhere. Dalinar gains Honor's power. Dalinar fights Gav. Dalinar pretty much lets himself be beaten by Gav because he refuses to fight back. Dalinar realizes, for some fucking reason, okay, this is not the point where we will defeat Odium. I will let go of the power of Honor. I will give it to Odium. Dalinar dies.
Oh, he also specifically dies after having his big words be, I understand you.
Yeah.
I don't...
To the power of Honor or something.
I don't know what that moment was trying to invoke. I think it was actually
the words how he wasn't that the words how he gained the power of Honor or something?
Yes. And I still don't understand what those words were trying to invoke because what Yes, it's real. Naka, it is real. It is real.
And the only thing we have of Dalinar right now is I think something that's called a cognitive shadow. So Odium created a cognitive shadow of the part of Dalinar that was the Blackthorn, so the Blackthorn still exists, but Dalinar is dead.
Because Honor now has to learn...
After fighting so much, and like it at no point was there a start of a realization of like, hey, maybe I'm not the one who has all the answers. Hey, maybe I don't need the one to do this.
Nope.
I don't even trust that he's really dead. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, same. The end of this entire thing of like Dalinar taking up Honor, but then also not taking up Honor, is Dalinar basically going, I understand you, Honor. And then going, but also you have to learn for yourself what isn't honorable.
You're a concept. A concept cannot learn. What the fuck?
He literally is treating Honor. Honor is presented as like a small child, which first, how do we have in the same like ending scenario of I don't want this. I can't do this. I'm giving it to someone else. But I also recognize that they still have a lot of learning to do, which in a way is still admitting that he still thinks that he knows what's best for Honor. Like, which one is it?
Yeah, it's like also, the tough love kind of thing.
I'm just gonna say it right now. Fuck Sanderson. Fuck Sanderson for now giving me 2 books where the character I hate most dies and I can't even feel satisfied at their deaths. Fuck him.
I'm so unsatisfied.
Shit with Wayne. Wayne got a fucking stupid ass heroic death. I hated it.
There was a point, I don't remember at what point, but I think it might have been Sarah dropped something or someone dropped something in the chat. And then me and Sarah were both at the same time like, please tell me Dalinar's dead.
I'm pretty sure that was,
that was the one. There was at least one positive thing about this stupid ass finale, and everyone was like, Dalinar died? I was like, I didn't want to spoil you, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was also the part where you dropped the line of honor is dead, and we were all like, does this mean he died?
God. But you know who does know what's right for everybody because he is our exceptional brown person, TM? Kaladin.
Talking about honor is dead. I told you I would rant about Kaladin's arc in this live show.
Mhm.
I remember getting to that one line, Sarah, that you told us was happening, and like my entire body went. Ugh.
Yeah. Same. So Kaladin has a stupid fucking arc in this book.
Yes.
I also do not accept. There exists a Kaladin in my mind. It has been really fucking hard to hold on to this Kaladin. That Kaladin is from book 1, and he has gone through a completely different character development than whatever the fuck Kaladin did in the last 4 books. 3 books, maybe. So, may I remind you, we ended the last book with Kaladin being like, I accept I cannot protect everyone. Great character development, in my opinion. It's a bit weird with, how the things work with the ideals, where you're like, I accept I cannot protect everyone, and now I can protect people better again. Bit weird. It's shit with ideals. Whatever. It's the concept. He's like, hey, I can't be a soldier anymore. I need to step back. I accept that I have to step back. So he goes on a fucking journey with Seth, which doesn't make sense. We haven't even talked about the journey with Seth. Is it even worth talking about?
I
Not
feel
really.
like it's a third of the book. We should probably talk about like okay.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. And then I want to read the lines, but you finish first. And then
he is now Seth's therapist, which by the way is like really badly done, because I get like he invented therapy was already a thing at the end of last book. But what he really did at the end of last book was invent self-help groups where he, as a majorly depressed person with a lot of trauma, talks to other people who are majorly depressed and have trauma, and by all of them talking together, they get a little better. That is very different from trying to be a therapist to someone. That is not what Kaladin is. Regardless, because it's Sanderson writing this, everything he does works, obviously. I'm not even going to talk about the therapy part. There's also 2 heralds coming in. Want to talk about the therapy first?
Can I read it? I have it right here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is literally the climax after Kaladin has helped like 3 people at this point, I think, and he's fighting Ishar. So Seth and Sylphrena are on the ground. They're like beaten or whatever, and they're kind of like, oh, we can't move. And then Kaladin says, Storms, I have to help them. It was a laughable thought. How could he help? He was barely functional. It was all he could do to stand there. But stand, Kaladin did. And somehow it helped. Seeing someone else resist helped. Seth groaned, managed to look up at him, and Syl stirred. How? Ishar repeated. What are you? He gestured toward Seth. Are you his friend? His god? No, Kaladin said. I'm his therapist. Ishar blinked. What is that? Honestly, I have no idea, Kaladin admits. And then they start fighting again.
So the thing with him being a therapist, also Ishar and Nale both are heralds. For those who don't know who heralds are people fighting against Odium, who every time they fail get sent to a planet where they for hundreds of years are tortured constantly until they break. Then they are sent back, fight Odium again until they die again, and get sent back to be tortured again. Which got so bad that in the end it was like a few days in between being sent back and forth, and they all decided unanimously, you know what the fuck, we can't do this anymore. It's enough if one of us is sent back. That person is sent back, and the rest of them for a few thousand years have now lived and slowly gone insane. they are all insane. Kaladin can somehow treat that like he treated that with Seth, who has his own issues, and then with Nale also. Which I also, by the way, really hated. Like in the book, it's used as the metaphor of the spear that you will pick up the spear who has seen a lot of fight because you know that it has survived the fight already. Which, you know, that is something that is talked a lot about in mental health spaces. Also, trauma does not make you stronger. Having lived through trauma does not prove that you can survive that trauma. Trauma makes you traumatized. You know, and sure,
done. That sentence is complete.
We all have different levels of what trauma we can survive. That does not make one person's trauma better or something than someone else. And just because two people have gone through the same trauma and one person has found ways to cope with it and another person does not make the person who has found ways to cope with it stronger.
Well, the way that Kaladin was able to resolve all of this and you know, cure a thousands millennial old being's trauma is with carrot soup, because the way to a man's heart is his stomach. So
exactly. So Kaladin A confirmed. And that scene that Steph just read you was when Ishar basically unleashed all of his trauma on everyone else around them, which fucked everyone up. Obviously, because this is a herald who has gone through thousands of years of trauma.
Yes. Also, it is important to note that Ishar was the bondsmith of the heralds. Bondsmiths are people who forge connections between other people or concepts. So, like, he was also responsible for the, like more or less, he was more responsible for the Oath Pact than everyone else was, because he as a bondsmith was responsible for keeping everyone tethered to their ideals and to each other. So he did, in fact, in that scene, I don't remember verbatim and I don't want to look it up because that was the part where I completely gave up on tabbing. But like, he more or less says something along the lines of like, I kept all of this trauma from the others too, which implied to me, at least, that he also tried to keep some of their own trauma away from the heralds because he needed everyone else to be functional, which is also why he went batshit insane even more than most of the other heralds did. And like, again, this could be an interesting talking point. This could be an interesting character moment.
This is the scene, like taking on the trauma, because Ishar in this scene is literally forging a connection between his trauma and the other people in the scene, is where Kaladin then stands up, which is why Ishar is like, what the fuck? Why aren't you lying right now? And that's where he's like, I'm a therapist. And like at the end of that scene, Kaladin swears his fifth ideal, which does not make sense in the context of this scene. All other ideals, to a certain extent, except again, what I said with the fourth ideal is like kind of somewhat makes sense. But the fifth ideal is I will protect myself so that I may continue to protect others. Which, not gonna lie, would have made way more sense if he had sworn that directly after the fourth ideal, when he made the decision of leaving service. Like, that's the moment to swear this type of ideal, right? With the first, second, third, I will protect those who cannot protect themselves. I will protect even those who I can hate, whatever. Makes sense when he swears this. What does this have to do with the scene right now? Like, how are you right now protecting yourself? How are you right now choosing to protect yourself? And after swearing this fifth ideal of I will protect myself, yes, so I can continue to protect others, so that's also part of it, but I will protect myself, he decides to become a herald, which is the last option right now to keep the full power of Odium from Honor. So the Oath Pact is sworn anew, and because Yserian, the king of the heralds, has been killed like for good, he's dead, he's kaput. Because of that they need a new herald, and originally Seth was chosen. However, Kaladin is like, no, Seth is a broken man, basically. Way more broken than I am. Because I have done the power to heal or whatever, I will take this up. And it makes sense for the role that Kaladin is set up for, because as we've said in multiple of these live shows, Kaladin is really the stereotypical epic fantasy hero. He is the underdog who has fought his way into somewhat a position of power. He is the one who, at least in word, if not really in action, a lot of times, is the one who says he will stand for the little man, and you know, those types of things. He is also the one who has gone through the most like the most consistent character arc still somewhat. Even if it's still really messy, because Sanderson can't help but let Dolinar's character arc mess with everyone else's. And you know, him going like, hail Kaladin, not Kaladin, Dolinar.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense with how Kaladin is set up at the beginning. However, it doesn't make sense with Kaladin's arc as of the last book.
It makes no sense.
Arc was, I walk away. I leave this conflict behind me. It's literally the beginning of this book is him coming to terms and him making peace with the fact that this journey that he decides to go on will mean that he will not be there when the Contest of Champions happens. So why does he still have to be the one to save the day in the end?
The actions are not matching the words. They're really not. Two things in what two of Kaladin's actions that really just made me upset to see, when I was like, dude, just can you walk away and just take care of yourself, please? Like, you said you were gonna do that, so can you do that? Because there was a point where he just kept nagging Seth, be like, tell me what's your trauma. Tell me what's your trauma. Why are you traumatized?
God, yeah.
Tell me. And Seth's like, bro, can you leave me alone? I don't want to tell you. And he bugs him to the point where Seth is finally like, okay, I'll fucking tell you. So he tells him, and it's like, that is don't do that. If someone doesn't want to open up a trauma dump, if they're not comfortable talking about it, please don't peer pressure them into talking about it. But also, he got to the point where when he finally learns about Seth's trauma, that he goes, I thought Seth was like me, but actually he's like my little brother who I'm traumatized about. And he like projects his own trauma onto Seth, which makes him kind of like latch on to helping him more. I'm like, I thought this was about you. You are not okay, sir. Like, what?
It just shows that Sanderson apparently has no clue that therapists, before they're allowed to be therapists, have to go through multiple years of therapy so they don't do that shit.
And the thing is, right? I want to make this very clear to anyone watching. We don't necessarily mind Kaladin being traumatized and projecting onto Seth. What we mind is that Kaladin is presented as like the all-knowing entity in this particular exchange. He is supposed to be the one who knows what he's doing. And he doesn't. And again, this would be fine if the narrative weren't trying to push Kaladin into the role of therapist.
This would, in fact, be a really interesting character arc.
Yes.
Of him trying to do right so fucking much. And, you know, realizing that's not how it works.
No.
That's not how anything works.
Two small things I have to say about the Kaladin Seth situation, and then we can move on if we want to. One of them is something that personally bothered me a whole lot. I don't think I can find the quotation. I don't know where it is buried. But so the country that Seth is from, which is the country that they travel to, is Shin. Now, apparently, which is something I never caught on to, the Shin are actually supposed to be the only humans on Roshar that are like white, like me white, like
White skin.
pasty
Mhm.
plywall white. They're supposed to be the only ones who are white. Everyone else is actually supposed to be, I don't know, vaguely Indian. I
Which
don't know what they're
just-
supposed to be.
Just a second. I mean, there is a list somewhere at Word of Brennan, but it's so funny to me how the reason why, like, the way that Shin are constantly described is oddly childlike, which is so funny because Europeans are literally the race that ages the worst of everyone.
It's fucking stupid.
Sure.
It's fucking stupid is what it is. But there was one part in this, in their particular exchange, that bothered me the most, because the thing is, while technically, if we want to believe, I don't know, the fucking word of Brandon at this point, while technically the Shin are supposed to be the white people race, they are almost exclusively characterized in the way that Eastern Asian characters are characterized. First of all, their name sounds more Japanese than actual Japanese words sometimes. It doesn't, but still, like, it is very obviously kind of Japanese loanword-ish situation. No idea what exactly is going on, but it's vaguely in that direction, right? We have the part that Sarah already alluded to, which is that everyone sees them as childlike. This is a massive stereotype for Eastern Asian people, or in generally Asian people from any kind of Asian country, wherever they're from, but this specifically applies to a lot of, like, Eastern Asian countries, because those are the ones that Europeans usually still know. Ha! Anyway. And there is just a whole lot also about the honor culture that they have, which is very stereotypically Japanese, quote unquote, or at least Eastern Asian. Again, very stereotypically. I don't agree and condone this kind of thing, but like, it is the first association that comes to mind, because this is something that a lot of fantasy books do. Now, here's the part where Brandon Sanderson tried to so unsubtly subvert that. First of all, Shin is in the West, not in the East. It is embarrassing how he tries to just like skirt away from that, like,
I mean,
impression
technically,
people
to be
have.
honest, from the US, Japan is in the West.
That is true. But anyway, so we have that part, and then second of all, we have this very small, again, this is a small part. I don't blame people for missing it, because I would have missed it too if I weren't so hellbent on finding things that disagreed within this book. So there's a very small section where Kaladin and Seth talk about eating habits. Specifically, where Kaladin and Seth get into this disagreement, and Seth essentially says that the Shin people have always thought Kaladin's people to be barbarians because of how they eat, and how they often use their hands when eating stuff, and shit like that. And it is so painfully microaggression in the way that it is trying so hard to portray the Shin as European, quote unquote. Like, Europeans don't exist in Russia. Again, this is all bias that I bring to the table as a reader. But I personally still think it is very warranted to talk about this very briefly, because Brandon Sanderson tries so hard to pretend like the Shin are these Europeans that think of everyone else as these backwater savages and stuff like that, to the point where it is just absolutely fucking painful. I hate it every second of it. No, thank you. Bad, horrible situation.
Mhm.
It's
Also,
just
no, Sanderson isn't a weep. However, he went on his mission trip to Korea.
yay.
So he
love
does
that.
have a bit, like in a lot of his books, he has this kind of weird Eastern Asia
Vibe.
appropriation. I don't know what to call it, really.
It's weird. And the second thing, and this is again more on the narrative thing than on anything else. So, like with just about any other Stormlight Archive book, we also have backflashes in this one, which I don't necessarily mind. This time, they are mostly for Seth and his past, because, we're exploring Shin, so obviously we have time for this. It's not like there's a 10-day timeline, whatever. And my problem is that all of these backflashes are presented from Seth's perspective. So we as the reader know everything that's going on. However, it is framed within the book as this is how Seth tells his story to Kaladin. Now, within those stories, within those backflashes we as readers get, it is abundantly clear from the very beginning that when Seth became someone who kills, which in Shin means someone who subtracts, which is a bad thing, it's horribly handled, but it is whatever at this point. When he becomes this person, he's actually very young because raiders attack his farm and he comes back and he sees them slaughter one of the sheep that he really liked. And then that person also tries to attack him and he defends himself by using a stone to essentially pummel the man to death. This is a taboo in two ways. One, again, he subtracts, so he kills. Bad. Two, because stones are actually holy in Shinovar. And so Seth using a stone to kill another person is like double taboo. What the hell is this guy doing? But it is made very, very clear that he is very young when this happens. However, the scene that we alluded to where Kaladin projects onto Seth by saying he's like his little brother is actually a scene that is supposed to be a revelation, because it is the scene where Kaladin is like, oh my god, I never realized that Seth was actually super young when this happened. I always assumed he was about my age, which I forgot how old he was exactly when all of this happened, but like maybe 17 or something like that. 16, 17?
Something like that.
Kaladin?
No,
Yeah,
16.
when he becomes a slave. That's 16, right?
Oh yeah.
No, when he leaves, when he becomes a soldier, is 16.
Yeah, he's a teen.
Oh,
He
okay,
becomes
okay.
a slave
So,
at
like,
18, I think.
So Kaladin is basically like, oh my god, I never realized that Seth was a child. However, this makes no goddamn sense from a reader perspective, because it has always been alluded to that the way that these backflashes are told is more or less exactly how Seth tells them to Kaladin, at least when it comes to the general material that's there. Maybe not the wording, whatever, but it is implied that this is how he tells his story. So Kaladin must have been fucking dumb to miss the fact that Seth was a child when all of this happens. So it makes no sense and it leaves no emotional impact, because you're just left there sitting, we knew that. We knew that. So did you not know this? Like, how was Seth's story then told? And this is where we miss out, because this is where I'm over here like, actually, we don't need the backflashes. Maybe we should have actually had Seth tell him. And so that way, we could have portrayed emotional maturity and an emotional journey. How does Seth tell his story? How does he hesitate? What does he leave out? What does he only tell when Kaladin asks for the third time? But we get none of that. We just get the backflashes, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, actually, this is not how he told the story at all. Like,
So
why?
By the way, the flashbacks also reveal once again Sanderson's complete inability at world building, because Shin community is basically like they are constantly threatened by these raiders. So they actually need people who subtract. So they need people who have killed, who are then allowed to bear weapons and to defend and to be violent and to kill other people to defend against the raiders. However, the rest of Shin society ostracizes and marginalizes those people who are soldiers, and are then surprised when those people are just like kind of really fucking shit and randomly kill sheep.
And also just randomly go insane.
That's warranted, but like, I don't know. It just seems like a system that would have just collapsed after 10 years if the only people who are allowed to be violent and bear weapons are then on top of that constantly told that they're terrible and that they're even more violent and ostracized from society.
I feel like the only reason that we got all that, and I don't know if how accurate this might be, is like it's a direct counterpoint to Adeline and like what's happening with this glorification of the Alethi. We know that they're warmongers, but they're still technically seen as in the right for the way that they go, and Adeline like brings people to defend this other city, and that they ultimately, it comes to some successes, and that they're the heroes of this story. So it's like a direct counterpoint to that. Well, it's like, oh, if you think that them actually being warmongering and idolizing soldiers is bad, well, here's a society that does think that it's bad. But it's like, that is such and extreme, and it's irrational. It just doesn't make any sense. But I feel like a lot of these things that we're seeing is just, for some reason, Sanderson is writing these in almost in like a kind of binary where it's like, oh, well, if this thing is good, then here's the other side of that. And if women have it bad, then men have it bad too. And all it's like, bro, chill.
And it's this thing again where it's like, this could have been interesting to explore, but we don't explore. We don't. We do nothing with it. It just, and it's the same thing that we keep talking about over and over again with the whole like how male versus female people are treated, specifically in Alethkar, but it kind of extends to other places as well, like Veden, for example. And like this is another nitpicky thing I have. So for everyone who doesn't know, incredibly brief, women have a safe hand, which is one hand that they are never allowed to show in any kind of environment where they're not on their own. People who have a lot of money actually have their safe hand kind of like in their sleeve. They basically have one sleeve that's sewn shut. And people from lower classes often, or like women from lower classes, I should specifically say, often wear a glove on one hand. It is always implied that this then means that women are supposed to only do things where they use one hand. Why is it acceptable for Alethi women to fight with bow and arrow? What is
that? Is definitely like the one weapon where you only need one hand.
Yeah, sure. It's not like I've done that for like 4 years of my life.
I don't know. Wasn't there like I remember us taking issue or something else with that specific scene where they talked about women? Like, I don't remember what it was, but there was something about the way
that it was trans character in the scene before that, and it was like a combination of like there was a trans character who wanted to fight, like a trans man. And Adolin was said like, no, this is a guy. He has all the proper paperwork, so he's a guy. Which, you know, to be honest, I feel like we're supposed to feel silly of this concept in Azir of like, well, you're only trans if you have all the paperwork. But to be honest, it makes sense. Like, it's not that unprogressive for me, and it makes sense for a highly bureaucratic society as Azir. That is, in fact,
I think Azir it's one of the best societies we have, honestly.
Yeah.
Also, Howl, don't
spare yourself, Howl, please.
Please don't.
I understand the sentiment, but you need to understand that you would be reading over 5,000 pages. Like, you do
a year.
6,000. Each book is about 1,200 pages. Times 5 is 6,000.
Don't do it.
And then right after we meet the trans guy, there's a woman coming up to Adolin, and Adolin, because he just met a trans guy, assumes that this woman is also a trans guy. And she's like, no, I'm not. And I think that's where we had that whole discussion of like Alethi and shooting bows and whatever. And that woman just like complains about being sent to the like what's it called? The runners, basically.
Yeah.
Where he's like, very understandably, no, if you're in a shield wall and you have a person who's not as good that breaks the shield wall, that's really fucked. Which somehow we completely ignore once he has to be in a shield war minus one leg. Might I remind you, there suddenly it's not an issue if you have someone in a shield wall who's like, I get that he trained this, but still, less than 24 hours ago, you lost your fucking leg.
But don't you understand, Sarah? He trained as a duelist by sliding off a beam, so he knows how to balance on a peg leg.
It's so painful. Listen, okay, I also want to just add, while we're on the topic of things that don't make sense, and also gender norms and or not gender roles in whatever societies, cannot wrap my brain around how the Alethi are suddenly so open to being queer allies, and yet we're still having this drama about men are reading books. I'm like, how are these two?
But don't you know it's doubly manly if you take a dick up your ass? Like, that's two men, you know?
And we're still like, a woman is picking up a sword.
But don't you see? You need two hands to give a hand job or something. I don't know.
Okay, so does that mean that being polyamorous with two dudes is the most manly you can get?
Yeah. It's like polyamorous is only for men.
It's like, and again, I
need two hands to hold two hands, you know?
I need people to know, like, it's not that we're saying that people, like, it's just so bad. It's so bad. It's the worst queer representation, trans representation, all of it I've ever seen. And it's like, no, I don't want to see, queer tragedy in my fantasy. That's not something that I asked for here. But he chose to write these things in the middle of a 10-day apocalypse.
So fun.
Why?
Also, I would like to say this again. I'm pretty sure we've said this like at least 3 times. We are aware that gender-based discrimination does not have to make sense. We are aware that a lot of discrimination doesn't make sense if you think about it. However, there are inconsistencies in these discrimination systems to the point where the entire Alethi society shouldn't function anymore.
Yes.
Women are barred from being in government, but they are also the only ones able to read, and also for some reason written text is still important to the society. It makes no fucking sense.
Yes.
There's a scene where Kaladin, I think in book 4, is like, it's so sad that surgeons don't know how to read. Then why are the textbooks there? Why do they exist?
If then why are surgeons then?
Yes.
First of all, that too. It makes there's no consistency anywhere. It makes no fucking sense, because if a society was like, reading is for women and women don't belong in the government, then the government would not rely on written texts.
Yes.
It is simple.
This entire society, because of the way that these specific careers are enforced dependent on gender, forces most families to be able to function when it is the like conservative nuclear family of a man and a woman come into union. And so how is this society that is so very prevalently conservative in its values also so openly like, yeah, trans people are great, queer people are great, like,
but then like also listeners are apparently homophobic, even though they have a society that is not built around sexual and romantic relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also a lot of mated pairs that like mate in mate form also stay together if they're like in whatever other form.
Again, we could have had something really fun happen there, and then we just didn't. Also, yes, Naka, I fully agree. He doesn't know how they function in real life, and he just thinks they sound cool. Like, I'm pretty sure he looked at the whole, like, they are not allowed to use one hand and was like, this is nice, and then he didn't think about it anymore.
And again, this works if you have like a standalone of 400 pages, maybe even a trilogy with 400 pages each. This does not work if you have a combined 6,000 pages, and the full series is probably going to be over 10,000 pages.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. It does not work. Also, hi, Katie. We are horrible. We are at our absolute wit's end.
We're struggling. I also need to just toss out there, I have about 30 minutes left that I can commit to this.
Okay, cool. So, all right, so here's a question. Do we still have something specifically about book 5 that we want to talk about? Or do we want to try and get our chart out and see if any of that was ever resolved?
Let me see if I can find the chart. Hold on. I have not pulled it up.
Let's get the chart out because then we see if we still need a sixth one of these.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, did I put it into Canva? Oh, hold on. Did I lose the chart? Give me a second.
Yes, to an extent, the flute battle is in fact real.
Did I may have lost. Oh, apparently the app that I had the chart on is not Google supported anymore. No. Jamboard's gone.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, well.
Maybe I can pull it up from like one of our last live streams. Hold on. I can do this. We were on my channel last time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it were. Yeah.
Keep talking. I got this. I'll come back in a second. I'm finding it.
So yeah, the flute battle is technically a thing, yes, because Kaladin learns that there's like a very specific song that the heralds know, and when he plays it on his flute, at least Nail has an emotional breakdown, and that's progress or whatever. Also, the book is called Wind and Truth, right? And it, for some ungodly reason, includes wind as an entity that was never there before.
Out what that was about?
No.
We
what
did
the
not.
hell is
it
that?
Just existed. Right. It makes no sense. Also, I'm eating peanut flips, Howl, and they're delicious.
I have both Took here.
And
I have Speculoos cookies.
Also, I have Shogetten.
Ooh. Is that like white
chai
chocolate?
Latte, nice.
Yeah, they're really good. So basically, Steph, what you have to understand about Shogetta is hold on.
They're tiny.
They look like this.
Ooh, cute.
Although, not gonna lie, I used to love them, but then I was like, by now, the chocolate is usually too oily for me.
That's fair.
It tastes like very cheap chocolate.
But there's some really good ones.
Yeah,
anyway.
I haven't had them since school, to be honest.
That's fair. The nougat ones. I like the nougat ones a lot, but I like nougat in general, so you can't really fuck it up all that much, to be quite honest.
I'm by now very, very picky with chocolate. I don't even like Rittersport anymore.
Oh my god. Gasp.
I pretty much only eat, like, aside from high-end artisans chocolate, I eat Milka and I eat Lindt. And
okay, Lindt, I understand.
Ooh, I love the Lindt chili chocolate, dark chocolate. Oh, it's so
chili chocolate is so good.
Shortbread is also very much approved. I love shortbread. It's also so easy to make.
I haven't had enough good shortbread, I think, so far, because it usually is too dry for me.
I'll make some for you.
Okay, I'm struggling. I don't think. Oh, wait.
Oh, something has been found.
Hold on. I'm looking. Did we look at it in our last live? Okay, hold on. Okay, let's put a pin in it. Hold on. Can I share a screen? Can I?
I think you should be able to.
I'm on Sarah's channel on another tab. Looking at her. Hold on.
Listen, it's fine.
Okay, it's back to Oathbringer. I don't know if Scylla, if you need to like approve it. Oh, because it's on the.
Oh yeah, maybe. Oh yes, I do. Here we go.
There we go. Can I make this bigger? Okay, put a pin in it. It says, with the forms of singers post-colonization.
We talked about that, right? Okay. We talked about how it's basically. I mean, we talked about the fused, the Regals.
Yeah.
And how it's like basically just set up for the TTRPG. Which we still need to decide if we want to try and find it somewhere. And if we want to play it or not.
I'll do it if it's free. I'm not paying for it.
Same.
We have Liren and Kaladin's family values, honor, question mark, and caste system, which we
talked. I read it about this last time. I remember that.
We talked about it, but also it did not resolve itself. It got worse. So, that's a plus for us and a minus for Sanderson.
Well, Tef POV, Tef's dead, so that doesn't matter. Dalinar's authoritarianism
got worse, so
worse. Development of the fuse, worse.
Yeah.
Worse, non-existent.
Venli's POV,
Worse.
non-existent. Kaladin as a surgeon versus Kaladin as a soldier should now be Kaladin as a therapist.
Kaladin as a therapist versus Kaladin as a hero.
Listen, they're fine now because like now they are split apart in a way where they won't realize that they're tortured, so they should hold up longer. But also while they're in this pocket dimension, Kaladin can now therapize all the heroes, so they're fine when they come back.
And then
I'm
we
so
have how
tired.
is each character treated in later books, Moash and Seth, which we just talked about Seth.
And we also talked about Moash because Moash had like one chapter.
Yeah, he
This
was
book.
literally almost non-existent.
We did talk about this in like our Discord, and I want to throw this out really briefly. The thing about Moash is, once again, just like Venli, he is an absolute non-character in the 5th book, and this is especially egregious because, as Sarah pointed out,
No,
Oh, Scylla,
you're gone.
come back.
Damn, but the internet should somewhat still be here, right?
I think so because
Otherwise-
we're
Now you're back. You're moving again. I can see you blinking.
huh? No, it's
can't-
me. Hold on.
Yes. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm blinking. Hold on. Okay, am I moving again?
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, so I don't know how much of that came through, but basically Moash is an absolute non-character in this book. He just and it is mainly because he was always just supposed to be a character foil, and the character foil moments just don't work anymore in book 5 because he was supposed to be a character foil for Kaladin, and then his arc was essentially also done in book 4 when he killed Teft. That should have been the end of it, but alas, it was not. And Kaladin doesn't need a character foil anymore. An entity, basically.
Yeah. If at all, Moa should have gotten from a foil to a parallel and also gone on pilgrimage.
Yeah, and it didn't happen. So whoop whoop.
And then there was a question what we think of Syl.
She's annoying.
She's basically used to parrot Sanderson views on honor.
Yeah.
That's what she is.
There are some moments with her, like throughout the books, that like we have this moments where it's just like, oh, are we getting to a point here? And then we never return to the conversation. Like there are moments where Kaladin asks Syl, like, you know, is this actually honorable? Is this actually a good thing? And she admits to not knowing, and then we just never return to that because it's not important anymore. So that fucking sucks. That is also not resolved in book 5. If anything, she gets more silly again in book 5 because Kaladin himself had to become more silly so he could be a nice foil to Seth being brooding emo boy, which also ruins Kaladin because Kaladin used to be brooding emo boy, and I need Brendan Sanderson to understand that 2 emo boys can exist in the same scene without it being bad.
Yeah, and then there's the thing with Seth that we also didn't talk about so far. The farther we get along in the book, the harder it is to distinguish between Seth's and Kaladin's voices. Because Sanderson is incapable of writing different voices for different characters. And Syl is also another character that just kind of had almost a character arc, but not really, because we forgot about it, because she did have this thing at the end of the 4th book where it's like, hey, I'm pretty fucking depressed also. I'm not okay. Except we never really did anything with it.
Can I just say, even from that last book, I'm still not over the fact that we had, again, a throwaway line where Scylla was, like, again, basically very close.
Not Scylla.
Oh, sorry. That still was, like, in adjacent to reverse racism in a way, because she was like, oh, Kaladin, I didn't want to tell you that I was a princess and actually like the light eyes of my people because I thought you'd hate me because you hate light people. I'm like,
Yeah.
one.
And then the last character that we didn't get around to talking about, but honestly, I just get angry. Yasna was also character assassinated in this book.
I do want to very, very briefly mention this because I've said this previously, and I think this is very important to any author out there or aspiring author. If your readership can come up with a fix for a scene that you've created within less than 5 minutes of angry brainstorming on a Discord server, you fucked up.
Yeah, that was us with the discussion scene between Yasna and
because
Taravangian.
So, very super briefly, there is a scene. It is actually not a very long scene, even for this book. I think the scene is like, I don't know, maybe 20 pages max in total, which also is pretty fucking boring because it seems like somewhat of a mini climactic scene, and then it's just nothing. Where basically Jasna and Taravangian, who is now the like he's Odium basically, and they have this discussion about Thylena, which is one of the city states essentially, and Jasna is trying to convince Fen, who is the leader of Thylena, or well, actually, like one part of the council of the leaders of Thylena, but whatever. That's also not super
she's
important.
the queen, and then the council can, I think, it's like a constitutional monarchy, kind of. I think.
Yeah. Which again is also brought up in like a half sentence to make a point, quote unquote, and then never again. But you know, whatever. At this point, I don't care anymore. But basically, Jasna and Taravangian engage in a philosophical debate. Heavy emphasis because it is not philosophical, where essentially what Jasna is trying to convince Fen to stay on Jasna's side, and Odium / Taravangian is trying to get Fen to give up Thylena and to join him. And so they start bringing arguments to the table. Now it is important to note that Jasna is a scholar. This is never really actually shown in the book. It's just something that keeps being said over and over again because she's a shitty ass scholar, but you know. And so throughout this debate, instead of both of them talking about the concept of freedom, the concept of the concept of freedom, the concept of choice, the concept of just about anything, what they keep doing is they keep engaging in ad hominem after ad hominem after ad hominem attack, to the point where the book actually spells this out, with Jasna going, Taravangian didn't come to argue about Thylena, Taravangian came to argue about me. The problem here is that Jasna is impressed by this. It is horrendously done. For anyone who doesn't know, ad hominem basically just means your argument is not about a concept, your argument is against the person bringing the counter argument. It is considered a faux pas at best, and just you being fucking stupid at worst when it comes to a debate, because ad hominem attacks can easily be counteracted on the actual level of talking about the concept itself. And what is so fucking embarrassing is it would have been so easy to make this scene be super scary by basically saying no matter how logical Jasna argues about what good it would do Fen to not side with Taravangian, Taravangian just uses any dirty trick in the book to consistently argue that he knows best and that everyone else will perish if they don't come to his side. And so Jasna comes to the chilling conclusion, no matter what she says, she's gonna lose. It could have been so scary. Instead, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing ever.
It was so disappointing. Apparently, by the way, this is something that Josh told us, but apparently even like staunchly Sanderson fans didn't like that scene. And that tells you exactly how badly it was handled.
Yeah, the thing is, I think the only character who doesn't have a complete character assassination in this book is Adolin.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, again, something that's consistent from earlier videos.
Yeah.
Adolin so far has been the most consistent character.
Yes. And it's just embarrassing.
But,
it's one character out of a massive cast. And the only reason he looks good is because everyone else looks so bad.
However, we are now done with the series. Reading this year and for the rest of our lives can only get better. we can now
Amen.
decide which books we want to continue on reading critically.
So excited to read something good with you guys.
Steph, just so you know, Sarah and I are not above dragging you into some of her favorite series.
I'm here for it if I have a good time of any kind.
I
The
am
bar is
staring at
hell, you
Chorus
guys.
of Dragons. I am staring at Chorus of Dragons. I am kind of tempted.
Yeah, I am right now. I'm still with Blood Over Bright Haven because I think Blood Over
Also a
Bright
good
Haven does some of the things that Sanderson talks about like in side sentences, but has it as like major themes.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I
have
would
Blood
be
Over
down.
Bright Haven on my shelf, so
Like
Me
Blood Over
too.
Bright Haven, one of the major themes in Blood Over Bright Haven is intentions versus results
Mhm.
of your actions, and is something morally good if you do it with good intentions, even if bad things happen because of that, or is something only morally good if the results are positive or a net positive?
I'd be down. I'd super be down.
I'm down. Yes, please. And guys, we did it. It's been a whole year and we did it.
I cannot believe that we're finally
Yeah,
free.
to be honest, I mean, I thought for sure we would need a 6th show
Do we
to
need
finish
it?
our thoughts, but I'm so done.
Yeah, same.
I'm
Honestly,
so
it's-
done. I don't even have anything to add anymore.
Yeah. What more would we say that we haven't said already?
Like, I do think that if we just keep talking, we'll probably get to a point that is somewhat new. But at the end of the day, the likelihood of us hitting something that we've already talked about for at least 30 minutes is very high.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Although we do need a name for this now, though, that isn't like Sanderson.
Oh yeah, we need a name for our little group.
Bitching about Sanderson, Stormlight Archive.
If anyone has any suggestions for this new little critical reading troupe that we're doing,
please feel free to leave them or to just tell us in any of the channels that you share with us.
I guess we also have to decide like if we're gonna be doing this as a more regular thing, probably not a monthly thing because I can't do any monthly things.
No,
maybe like even a bi-monthly or a like seasonal.
Like quarterly, I think.
Quarterly. Quarterly would be better. But if we want to open it up for people to be able to read critically with us, if that's a thing, or if we just want to go online and bitch. I guess once we come to a conclusion on what we want to do, probably after we've decompressed from this for like a few days.
You guys do not understand. We dragged ourselves at the skin of our teeth through these last pages. It was horrendous.
It was terrible. I've said it multiple times. I will say it again. The only reason I finished Wind and Truth was because I didn't want the last year to be for nothing.
Yeah.
Same. I wanted to be a hater on like the most informed level I could be.
Yeah.
I didn't even care about that anymore. I was just like, I need this to not have been for nothing. I need this to have a solution.
So I still have to put up my last vlog, which I'm almost done filming. I'm gonna probably finish filming tonight so I can post it up this week. But like I've been reported for every vlog that I've done on this series. So 5th time's the charm. Let's see how long it takes.
I still need to film all of my videos. I still need to film my gender on Roshar video. I still need to film my colonialism video. But I will do all of that, I have decided, once I have done writing. I'm done writing my master's thesis.
Please do.
Oh my god.
But yeah, thank you guys for being here. And if you just found us, thank you for sticking around and joining this conversation. But if you've been here for the past year, you're a real one.
Also, I do have to say it again. Shout out to Josh.
Yes. Pop it up for Josh.
Josh, who dealt with us, every single one of us, this book at some point was like, with the way Sigil is written, it is so obvious that he is going to die.
Yes.
And every single time, without being sarcastic, without saying anything, Josh was like, hey, by the way, he's the main character of the Sunlit Man, so we know he's not dead.
Josh has been with us through every single bitching session. You don't understand how vicious we are on the Discord. He has been there for everything. Every time we tag him, we get an answer, like basically immediately. It is absolutely fantastic. I don't think we'd be here without Josh. I'm so serious.
No. So
Josh holds
like,
the brain
I
cell of
wasn't
the
sure about this anymore, but I want to do a biblically accurate ranting. Josh, can you remind me again? Josh, our personal wiki.
Yes, we are so grateful to everybody who supported, but like Josh behind the scenes, you guys don't know.
You don't understand. You don't understand how much he has carried us.
And by the way, Josh gave this book 5 stars. So, you know, all of you who hate watch us and leave comments can stop bitching. Also, Josh is always in the comment sections of these live shows just being like, hey guys, I love this book and I'm in the Discord and I'm not bothered. So
literally.
The hero we didn't deserve, but we very much appreciate.
Yes. Oh my God, we did it. I'm free. Oh, I'm gonna go have food now. I'm so excited. It's gonna taste actually delicious.
Oh God. I cannot believe we've made it.
Made it. Okay. I've got to get going in a couple minutes. We should probably wrap it up.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess stay tuned for if you're not subscribed to all of us already, and I guess if you want to hear what other series we're gonna critically engage with. Now, critically engage with doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a rant like this has been, but if you want to hear us talk as a group about some other, you know, titles or whatever, make sure that you, I guess, subscribe to all of us and put your notifications or whatever so we can let you know what the update is for our quarterly whatever this is.
Exactly. I'm gonna leave again. The links are going to appear magically in the box, like at the very latest tomorrow. So you can check everything out. You can check out the links to the organizations that we shouted out at the beginning of this video. You don't have to donate anything, especially if you don't have the means to do so, but you can always spread awareness if you want to. That is very much appreciated. And just, you know, if you feel yourself wanting to buy a Brandon Sanderson book, maybe just put that money towards something infinitely better.
Also, you can probably find him easily secondhand by now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very easily.
And in your library.
Everywhere, basically. So, you know.
Yay. Okay, I think that's it.
Yes.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.